grade, I'm next. Okay. Now, Jim, question to you, and to you too, Steve, both of you. Who are the members of the Public Safety Committee, and how were they selected? Either one.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I don't have everybody off the top of my head, but I'll tell you who I do remember for certain, right? We have a position that we decide to keep for whoever the president of the NAACP, so Bill Breaker's on it. We have one councilman who's on it. Hey, look, if somebody doesn't like Bill or they don't like the NAACP, we decided to give that position as the longest serving advocacy group in Jersey City, so that's the position there.
Right.
We have former police chief Frank Kajewski sitting on that board. We have a community activist named Chet Rothman who's on that board. We have, who else is on that board? There's two.
One from each ward?
No, we missed the north. The north, the Heights has been quite vocal to me that I missed the Heights.
Yeah, I don't have any of the, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, so where do I apply? Because North Jersey Chapter National Action Network needs to be on that committee.
Well,
like you
we will, Carolyn, I mean, we'll post it on the city website, and you just submit the form, and you know,
and then you'll take it from there.
Take it from there.
Okay, the other question, burning question request is, okay, so who's watching the store? Back to referring to the Croson study. Who is in charge of diversity, and where do I get those records? I asked for the past 6 to 8 months for records telling me how many minorities were hired and maintained on new developments. I've gotten nothing, 0 crickets.
I'm sorry, you didn't answer my first question was posed where someone had put information out to me, but they never reached out to me.
When you leave, give me your email, and I will loop it back in with the deputy mayor over here, because it's the other deputy mayor that's running that committee, actually, the one Pamela was in. So we'll close that loop. I apologize on that. Okay. The Croson study. Let me just bring everybody up to speed so everybody knows. Her question was Croson study and getting information surrounding this. So Croson study was a study that was started by the previous administration, which is mandated by law in order to show disparities between hiring of white contractors or professionals and minority contractors. Once you can actually show via study the disparities that exist over there, then you put a plan in place and you could require some mandates around certain hiring requirements. That study was implemented and finished under our predecessor, but nothing was ever done. They put it on the shelf. We decided to come into office and saying that this is important. It is a hard thing to achieve, but we actually dusted it off and started down the road of implementing it. So sometimes people say, hey, this hasn't happened fast enough, or why hasn't this happened? And I point to the fact that nobody has ever done it before. The previous administration put it on the shelf because they didn't want to deal with it. So we started down the road. Both the councilwomen who I'm going to turn over sat on the committee, put an actionable plan in place on hiring staff that actually goes to the construction sites now. They've actually just hired, I think, 3 inspectors actively going there. There are penalties in place. If they don't hire the required people, it's no longer a good faith effort as it was previously, which basically meant nothing. So we've started down that road, and we've done more on it than anybody. We still got a lot more to do, but I'm going to turn it over to Diane and Joyce, who have both been involved in this, because we probably have some more to add.
Okay, before the councilwomen speak,
the individual responsible just for one of the offices of compliance is a lawyer. His name is Pierre. He lives in Ward A. He formerly worked in the prosecutor's office. Yes. And then there's 2 inspectors.
Okay.
And then
the third's coming.
third.
Okay, fine. All right, all of that. But back to part B of the Croson study diversity question. Where are the records? Because there had to be some records, ladies and gentlemen.
Here, here.
There have to be some records of if it was 1 person hired within the past 5 years or 100. And if that cannot be supplied, there's got to be something somewhere that can be supplied for me and my team that's studying this, because now, if not, so these people have been in place, we've been paying them for nothing. So it's been a waste. Of course, we know that as people of color, we have been shelved, just like the report. And it's not just people working on new development projects. It's also about the disparity between businesses. I mean, it's really, really something. Women, well, we could be 2 or 3 minorities all at once. But on a very serious note, it's about owning business, because people of color, it has been proven that we are in a state of economic Jim Crow. Now, I'm speaking out tonight because I need to try and get, well, I tried before now, so let's take out try. The operative word here, phrase is here, I need to get some stats, some numbers on what has gone on prior to this, and what we're going to do moving forward. Now, here we go again, the Croson study team that was in place. I think it was needless for us to have another team of people studying the Croson study. The Croson study went forth. It was a lot of information that didn't just happen overnight. It also gave us remedies. So, you ladies, I now defer to you.
Well, the first thing I would like to say is, after reading the Croson study, the remedies, you couldn't really just implement them after there was actually nothing happening for the last 20 years. So policy and law had to be put in place because none of that existed in order to move forward with the plan. So we had to do that first after pulling apart the Croson study. We put together a policy and we put together a plan. So it took a little bit of time. We couldn't do it in 1 or 2 months because it was over 500 and some odd pages that had to be reviewed and put into layman's terminology for people to understand. Now that's happened and a plan was created. Now staff had to be hired. We pulled some stats and the stats were very, very low. We pulled a few stats. There wasn't any stats to really pull because nobody was ever really paying attention to whether minorities or females or whom. They were just doing. They were purchasing or working and nobody was recording stats. So in the beginning of our study, we asked our purchasing department and our personnel department to start pulling those stats. So now there's been a person hired, his name is Reverend McCray, and his first 2 goals were to pull stats on minorities, employed, and comparison between salaries and positions, and to implement a community benefit agreement for developers, meaning you can't go to the planning board with a plan unless you can tell us what benefits are going to be in that plan that you're building for the community. So 2 things have happened. From what I hear, his staff has just gotten, he's just got a staff on Monday, so it takes time. In other words, it takes time to interview, it takes time to review, to make sure the person is qualified. Now that they've done all of that, as the mayor said, there's an inspector working on the construction, and Reverend McRae and his staff are working on stats for inside of the organization. And I do know that very shortly, part of that plan is to pull all minority businesses together, to give them training on how to meet the criteria, to show them all of the assets from the city that are on the website. The website is being updated and they're going to be trained on how to fill out the paperwork, how to solicit their proposals for bids. And all of that is going to change. It's more complicated than I can just say right here in those few minutes, but that's what's getting ready to happen now that the diversity director has got a staff, because up to this point he was doing it without a staff. Okay, so that's where we are. All
of that is fine and it's well taken, well received. Now, I'm going to go back a little. So, Reverend McCray got a staff. Okay, wow. Was that publicized that he needed a staff? See, a lot of things that go on, talking about transparency, and nothing's transparent. It's opaque. Now, we knew nothing about, the community knew nothing about the search for people to be on that staff, like for his office. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times when you get citizenry that's irate, they're justified. Now, all of that's good, but I understand it's not going to take overnight. It won't take overnight. But I think that we can move it along a little faster than it's moving.
We're gonna work on that,
All
Carol.
right. Okay.
Available to the public, so that people.
Yes, the plan is available. If we will, why don't you reach out to, if you reach out, I'm just going to make a note over here. If you reach out to the councilwoman, we'll do it.
Joyce, you will see that I can copy the plan?
Yes,
Thank
absolutely,
you very much.
absolutely. We'll get, before we leave, we'll provide the email address that you reach out to us, and we'll forward you something over.
All right,
The
good.
gentleman in the back that I promised, well, yeah, the gentleman has had his hand up for a long time. I know, I can see you.
You better stand up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilwomen. These questions, basic questions. I love Jersey City, but I'm really mainly concerned about water. One for Commissioner Shea. You said you was gonna have an office here in this community during the election. Mayor, you said, Paul, you can hold me accountable for whatever. Whatever didn't do you real good in the election, so I don't know if that's why we're still where we are. They call our McDonald's Smackdowns, where your office is to be. It's just a reentry area where it's just, you know, it is what it is. There's supposed to be city hall coming here in that area, annex, but our community is still ravaged with crime, drugs. You said that there would be community involvement with neighborhood block associations, and people would come out, and my son Khalil would know that his name is Jeffrey, and this officer's name over here, he might know his nickname. That's not happening. The same thing is going on as it was all the way back as far as Sheila, Coolsey, all of it. Right now, I need you to give me an answer as to whether Jersey City was just a stepping stone to the governor, whether you're really concerned about Jersey City, why we went from the deputy's office being at MLK to a police recruiting office to a police car that's never manned there, parked there 24/7, and our community is still being plagued with the same issues. And here we are, 2016, saying the same thing we said in 2003. Now, here we are at a community meeting again, asking the same question. Here we are being told the same thing. We have to be trained for this. I'm so tired of being trained for this. How can, I've been doing this for over 30 years. How can I be here in this community, a building come up over there? I don't want any work from the city. I'm not asking the city for any jobs, so I'm speaking about contracts right now, but I'm not asking for contracts. I make my own way. What I'm saying is, if a building comes up and they say, oh, you're not qualified and you're not trained and you have to be trained, so this is not a prejudiced statement or anything I'm about to say. But we have other ethnicities that can't even speak proper English that will be on the job, and everyone on the job is not even from here, but yet they're trained properly in construction protocol, but we're not. And our young men are undertrained because there's no schools. The schooling that's here is ridiculous. Now, if we could spend $500 million on construction downtown, in the square, We can't get a community center to get some of these young boys somewhere to go play basketball, take that parking lot, turn it into a damn basketball gym, something. There has to be somewhere for our young men to go. I don't mind the double workshop. So if you leave them there, I don't care how much training you give, when they come out of Brook Tech, where they going? When they come out of that training that you're giving them and they come back here and they sit on their mom's porch or whatever, they're talking about their school, when they walk to the corner store, where they going? The police tell them to get off the corner and go back to the middle of the block. Ms. Johnson tell them to get from in front of your house and go back up the street. So where are they going? They have nowhere to go. They're 15 post CYO, and here we are again. I've said this 1,000 times. I just want change.
Okay, so, you want to say? Okay, you covered a lot of things there. But let me start by saying that there is a shared responsibility, okay? And if you're looking for government to solve every component that you pointed to, I think that you're not being realistic about what government's role is. We share responsibility. I'll tell you tonight, as a matter of fact, we got calls from several people that this meeting wasn't publicized and we needed to cancel it or maybe reschedule it, right? And my response happens to be exactly the same thing that I'm saying today, is that there's a shared responsibility. If it's in the Jersey Journal, if it's posted online, if it's on Facebook, at some point you have to meet us halfway. You can't say, well, I didn't know about that. As it relates to resources, specifically in Ward F, I can't tell you about correcting everything that's been wrong in the city for decades, and that's going to change overnight or that's going to change in 2 years. It's not going to happen is the realistic component of that, but it's going to take a little bit of time because it's taken a lot of time to get into this situation. But if you look at our budget, which is the best indicator of where we are spending our money and what's important to us, there is a disproportionate amount of public dollars that we are investing on the south side of the city. Now, you could say that I don't feel it or it's not moving fast enough, but you can't say that we're not putting our resources there. Every single officer in the last class that we had, every single one of them, went to the south and the west, onto walking posts. Were the walking posts perfect in how they interacted with the community? The answer is no. And we've been working on that to educate them and work with them a little bit better. But it doesn't change the fact that we are putting the resources there. The City Hall Annex, as it relates to moving offices there, is the single biggest investment in any ward as it relates to a government structure. And we're putting it in Ward F. There's nothing to do with who voted for me or who didn't vote for me because, as you say, we're investing massive resources into Ward F. It's a $20 million project moving a lot of city resources there. The reason we are doing that is because we couldn't attract private sector, so we figured the city would lead from the front. The bank at the hub. The previous administration couldn't do it. They left. It took us 3 years to get a bank to reopen over there, and we had to move city deposits over there. We were being very, very aggressive about that. On parks, you talk about parks. You'd be hard-pressed to argue that our largest investment in parks is not in Ward F. We have consolidated all of the park money available in order to finish Berry Lane Park, which is going to be the largest park in the city by far. And you see the other investments there. So, look, I understand their challenges. I'm not minimizing that by any stretch of the imagination, but I am saying that there's a shared responsibility on that. As it relates to the training and the Croson study and getting people on jobs there, yes, I'm standing in front of you, so we're going to take the back and forth, and I fully accept it because I love the job and we're going to be accountable for it. But you have to appreciate also that in the history of the city, nobody has done that Croson study or taken any action on it. They put it on the shelf. There was nothing done with it. And truthfully, there was nobody in the community that was telling any of us that go take that thing off the shelf when we got into office. It was almost forgotten. It wasn't out there. We did it, and people said we weren't moving fast enough on it, which I appreciate on it, but we are moving on that. So for the first time, there's going to be accountability. We're investing dollars there. Is it perfect? Of course not. But there's a shared responsibility, Paul. Like, there really is, ultimately. And we'll come back to it next. I don't want to go, ultimately, in a back and forth on this. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Paul, everyone knows I put my office up there. I know you saw me up there. I saw you up there. Governor McGreevy threw me out. I'll tell you the truth. He came to me and he said, I need that space for reentry. The reentry program is taking off. I can't serve all the clients that I want to because I don't have space. And he said, I need your space. And he actually tried to take the recruiting office too. He's a very aggressive guy. And we fought to keep it there. And I'll be moving back in when the new building opens. Let's go over here.
I had my hand up there for a long time.
Laverne, I'll come back to you. I'm just going to work my way this way. I see you over there. Yes. Got it.
Hi, Guy Pat, I'm a Lafayette resident, and I want to touch on two things. Firstly, the shooting this morning was a terrible thing, of course, but I want to point out that there has been a shooting or stabbing within 4 blocks of that spot every year for the last 9 years. And I want to point out that if you look at that area, if you walk down that street like I do every day with my son, there's a shuttered building. There's the factory that's covered in graffiti. There's that giant empty lot, probably the most valuable empty lot in New Jersey. The giant empty lot behind the light rail parking lot at Liberty State Park, light rail stuff. So this has been going on for decades. These buildings just getting in worse and worse shape, while these property owners sit on this property waiting until they can make the most money they can possibly make. But in the meantime, what we have is an area with a lot of vacant lots, a lot of decrepit, falling down, dangerous buildings. Looks like a good place to commit a crime. So what can be done to make these owners do the right thing in our community and make these buildings safe? The one building, the factory, is full of water. It's a mosquito and raccoon factory.
What's the address of that one?
That's the one that's that is where were all the police cars and cameras today?
Okay, 125.
125 Monitor, thank you.
Okay.
It becomes a real hazard in the summer when pests become out of control. Homeless people make their home in there, and that's tragic that they have no place else to go, but certainly it's dangerous. The empty lot, of course, across the street is full of trash and garbage. So it just looks like a part of the city that nobody cares about. And when you have a section of town that nobody cares about, that's where people go to commit crimes. So what can we do to make these property owners take care of these properties? That's my first question. I got one more, and I want to shoehorn in here. Considering that we don't have enough police officers, as we've all heard tonight, and that the problems of crime in Ward F especially are terrible, how could we possibly justify supporting a casino?
Okay.
Honestly.
So, all right.
Now, what we're talking about, when the research shows us that in light of all these, every research project that I've seen on casinos shows us that although there is a short-term economic boost, the long-term negative effects on the community far outweigh. You need way more police. You have way more crime. Foreclosures go up. Drug abuse goes up. You name it. Every societal problem you can shake a stick at, it happens in the shadow of casinos. And it really boils down to poor people giving money to rich people. That's what casinos do. And I just don't see how we can justifiably support this. So I want to hear how we can work out this issue with getting these property owners to do the right thing. And please, can you tell us how you could possibly support a casino?
Okay, all right. Two very different questions. All right, so let me start with that Bergen Lafayette area right behind Liberty State Park, which happens to be probably some of the best real estate, as you know, as you live there, in the entire city, ultimately. A couple key things about what you mentioned. First, again, I can't correct what's happened for decades. I can tell you what we've started to do in order to change the course in a significant way. First, on 125 Monitor, we are in litigation and condemnation proceedings on that property to wrestle that away from that developer who's taken advantage of that. That has been moving from our standpoint for the better part of the last year. That is not an overnight fix. There were issues as it relates to the adjacent property on 100 Monitor and the development that was there as well. There was disputes with the community group and the developer there. It's taken the better part of 2.5 years to get everybody on the same page there as well. There's a condemnation list that the city has implemented as it relates to the one-family and two-family houses. The laws allow us to start condemnation proceedings on those as well, and designating smaller developers, affordable housing, in order to move those properties forward once they're in neglect. For the first time, we are starting that as well. The first 25 properties, it's called the APRA list. If you want to get access to that list, it's available for the redevelopment agency, or getting Marcos, the deputy mayor, who's at the point person on this. Those are going through the process as well. Many of them are near you. So I would tell you, again, I know that government doesn't move as fast as people like, but again, we've taken a lot of steps that I would tell you that nobody has done before, for the reason that I happen to believe the same thing that you believe, that that area is a really, really incredible area. The bridge connecting Jersey Avenue, that bridge will start construction this spring. Another component as it relates to creating better access and linkage between the two communities, between Bergen Lafayette and the downtown area. So I happen to think that, you know, a lot of the things that we are doing specifically for your neighborhood, is going to have a really meaningful impact long term, for sure. You know, and if you're interested in any of those specific 125 Monitor or any of the specific properties around there, again, before you leave, just get his email. We'll give you everything on that so you can see what I'm saying. There's merit to it, and that I'm actually telling you something that's actually moving forward on that. So happy to do that. On the casinos, can we move to that? That's the second one? Okay. So I certainly appreciate that this is going to be a complicated issue, and I've been on the record saying that I am a supporter for it, and I will tell you why. That said, I'm going to take a step back and say my opinion in this matters no more than your opinion on this. It doesn't matter any more than the council's opinion on this. The process for this is that the state legislature has approved a ballot referendum. That means when you all go into the booth this November to vote for the Republican or Democratic presidential candidate, or an independent, ultimately, at the bottom of that ballot will be several questions. One of them will be, do you approve or do you not approve of casinos outside of Atlantic City? That's basically the way it's going to be framed. And that's going to go to everybody in the state of New Jersey. Now, what I've said to every other community group, and I will say it here as well, is that if it passes the state of New Jersey, meaning that the broader public, the 7-8 million people that end up coming out, most of which end up voting, say that they want gaming casinos in North Jersey. The three potential places for a casino right now are Jersey City, Newark, and the Meadowlands. Now, if the people in the state of New Jersey say, yes, we want casinos, and the casinos get a green light to move forward, but the people in Jersey City, you and us, respectively vote no, I am going to respect what you all want. I will not advocate to change zoning, to move forward on anything that you don't want. So when you go to the ballot, if the majority of the people in Jersey City do not want a casino, I'm not pushing a casino. I will tell you why, to me, it happens to be attractive. Let me tell you that, number one, where it proposed to be located. It is the proposed site for it to be located is directly adjacent to Liberty National Golf Course. When you drive up into Liberty National Golf Course or next to it, there is a large pit next to it, which is proposed for 2 30-story towers. Instead of those 2 30-story towers, which are approved today, there would be one large casino. Now, the rules around this in the legislation are that the casino would have a minimum investment wherever it is, whether it's in Newark, the Meadowlands, or Jersey City, of $1 billion. It would not be a box with slot machines. It is a $1 billion structure with non-gaming, meaning the restaurants, the entertainment, the revenue coming from that, as significant as the gaming portion of it. So you're actually looking at a Vegas-style, world-class destination casino on the skyline of Jersey City, not in a residential neighborhood. Secondly, there is a significant benefit economically to the city. The city that hosts it will make significant dollars from the revenue of the gaming casinos. That ultimately helps as it relates to your budget and your taxes for every single resident in Jersey City. Third reason is that the proposals say that this will create somewhere in the range of 5,000 jobs. Most of those jobs will go into the host municipalities. I recognize the fact that jobs are very, very important, and so I ultimately weigh the pros and the cons. The cons that you mentioned, I would say, are very valid as well. I'm not minimizing any of them. So I weigh them both, and I tell people that when I get into the voting booth, I'm going to say yes, but that doesn't mean that my vote is any more significant than your vote. If you get into that voting booth and 50% plus one vote no from Jersey City, it's dead. I can assure you, it is dead. That's where we are. That's the whole picture on that. So we'll go to you, and then to Laverne, and then we'll come back over there, okay?
Good evening, everyone.